Good morning, welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're getting right back into the cheapo camper van build here. So if you've been following along, the last thing here, we got our floor all done here, subfloor insulated plywood. We got the diesel heater installed here, that's all running. We're making heat in the van now, so we can move on to the next step, which will be insulating the ceiling and walls, because we want this thing to be usable in all weather conditions. It gets down to -40 up here, and I want this thing to be able to be used in the winter. And in the summer, the insulation might help keep some of the heat out. Eventually it's going to get air conditioning, roof mount and all that, so having that insulation in there will help maintain the temperature inside as well in the summer. So we've got some GPS foam board, 1 inch thick. That's about the thickness of those ribs there in the van walls, so that should fit about perfectly. So I think first thing I'm going to do, I got 3 sheets of this. I believe that's more than enough. If not, we'll have to run out and grab some more, but I'm pretty sure I got it. So first things first, I think I'm just going to go ahead and measure everything up, cut out the pieces I need, start laying them up against the wall. And then once we've got our big jigsaw puzzle all set out, our pieces sorted and everything, then we're going to use some silicone and start sticking them to the walls. Alright, so here we go. Alright, before I get too carried away here, I thought I would just mention a few things about the insulation, the choice I went with, why I did it, and what we're really trying to accomplish here. So, I chose the GPS foam, which is like they use it for insulating the outside of basements and stuff like that, the concrete and whatnot, and, you know, underground and whatnot. So I chose that because it's easy to work with. Ultimately, if I had my choice and I was trying to do a fancy high-priced build, then I would use spray foam is what I would do. Now if you go online and you read up on this stuff, you will see that in this community, this van life community where people are doing these things, it's probably one of the biggest points of contention is insulation. People will argue about this non-stop about what's best, and I mean, the way I see it, you're splitting hairs at the end of the day. It's not even really worth arguing or thinking too much about, and just use what's best for you, what's easiest to do, what you have the tools for, what you can manage cost-wise, because at the end of the day, it's a van, so you're just trying to put a thermal layer from the outside wall to the inside to stop any of that cold from making its way into the van through by actually touching something. So like I said, spray foam would be my choice because you seal everything here, and some people argue about this and say, oh no, you can't do spray foam because if the van ever gets wrecked, you know, then now you can't repair it, or it's just a nightmare that way, you can't ever change anything. But when you think about what you're trying to accomplish, you spray foam your wall. That creates a vapor barrier, first of all, which can be important because condensation is an issue inside of these vans. You're in here breathing and stuff when you sleep, and you're just, everything, all that moisture in your breath condenses. So what you don't want is that making its way into the walls, condensing, turning into water, running down, and ending up rusting your walls and rusting everything out. So if you spray foam that, it's completely sealed. It is a vapor barrier essentially, so you can't get moisture in behind it against that wall now. With what I chose to do with the foam, yeah, in theory I could still get moisture behind there, and I'm not going to put a vapor barrier in front to seal everything up. The whole thing is here is I'm just trying to create a thermal layer. As long as I have ventilation in here, which I am going to put a fan in, that should carry out any condensation so that I don't have to worry about it making its way in behind the walls and you know, condensing back there and having moisture problems like that that could run down and rot the floors and whatnot. So the foam worked for me because it was cheap, really, and easy to work with too, because spray foam, if I had to go buy a kit for that, like that would have been like $1,100 just for the spray foam kit for me to come do it myself, and that stuff gives off fumes and whatnot that I don't want to be worrying about in here. And it's a big day's of work too. It's a lot of mess and whatnot. So the foam I can just go ahead and put up against the walls here. You know, I can use a bit of silicone adhesive if I need to really hold them into the wall there. And then all these open gaps here in the framing and stuff, we can fill with spray foam after the fact. And any cracks that are, you know, left like up in here, I won't be able to really tuck that foam right up in there, so I can just fill some spray foam back there with a, you know, the mono foam or whatever from the hardware store that just comes in a can. So that'll be cheap and easy, because wham bam, get that done. And that's going to be enough to maintain warmth inside. You're not really trying to air seal this like a house, because at the end of the day, like I say, it's a van. You're going to lose heat. The most important thing is to have a heater that can keep up with that heat loss. And really, any of these cheap Chinese diesel heaters, you know, that's your cheapest option really you could do for a heater. That's going to have no problem maintaining any sort of heat loss that you have, even at minus 40 in Celsius in Canada, you know, where you're freezing. That diesel heater should have no problem maintaining. So that's what I chose to do. If this is something you were doing yourself, I mean, do whatever fits your bill. Some people like to use rock wool, and you'll hear arguments about that too. The rock wool's no good because moisture could sit behind there and then it molds. And you know, do what fits for you. Do what works. For me, the foam worked. And that's what I'm going to do. So now we should just go ahead and get right into it. But what I did is I thought I would come out, measure and cut a bunch of pieces here first off camera, because I didn't think there was a whole lot of value in you watching me just sit there and cut foam all day. That's probably pretty boring. So I cut a bunch of strips here. I started setting them in place, and what I was finding is, I'll just go ahead and show you what I was finding is that once I was cutting these, I was putting them in place, and they're pretty much compression fitting into place. Now, this one I could press fit a little harder. I was just setting this in place. But a bunch of them are just press fitting really nicely where they need to fit. And I don't even think there's going to be any need to use any adhesive on a bunch of these spots. Now, some of them, they don't fit very tight. So I was showing you this spot here, how, now if you look up, there's a big pocket up in there, right? And then it's got these weird angles here and stuff like that. And especially this one down here. The way this rib juts out from the wall, so the foam has to go. It's gonna overlap the side of this rib, but now when you get down here, you kind of have to make a cut in it to fit it in behind, so it lays flush against the wall down there. So there's some weird cuts to make. You can see this one, right? It got a bit mangled doing it, but like I say, I'm gonna take some spray foam. I'm gonna go ahead and shoot that in there to fill any of these gaps where the foam didn't completely fill. So you can see over here, this is the same rib on the other side, the way it juts out. So this one, right, I had to make a cut there and then kind of tuck the rest of it back in. Turned out okay. I'm happy enough with it. I know it doesn't look perfect and all that, but you should see the crap they hide in your house when they build your house. That's why they have trim on all the doors and windows. It's because it looks like a mess behind that trim. So these walls are all going to get covered with paneling eventually. So the other thing we did was the roof panels. Let's see if I can lay on my back here and show you what we did. So these 4 foot, like these sheets right here, they're 4 by 8 feet. The 4 foot actually fit almost perfectly across the roof here. So all I had to do was just cut my length, my width strip there, and then I was able to kind of, you know, bow it and shove it up in, and it just basically held itself up there. Now these, they're not totally fitted up against the roof. Try to get up and show you that now. So as you can see here, I think you can see, there's like a gap in the roof here. Get my light going and see if I can see anything better. So there's a bit of a gap there the way it's hanging. So these ones, I'm gonna get some sort of stilt to just, I'm gonna fire some adhesive back here. You know, I'll pull these back down, adhesive, and then we'll use something to press it up and hold it to the roof edge there while that adhesive cures. So that should work out all right. And like I say, yeah, maybe not everything is perfectly gap filled, but that's what the spray foam is gonna end up being for. We're gonna get in all this stuff here, you know, things like this here, and then once we get all these panels on, I saved this last one that I still have to cut, and I'm gonna fit this most ignorant one here I'll do that on camera just to show you what we're up against. And these doors then, once we're done with the foam paneling, well, I also have to cut some to make a nice little fitting for where this window would be, but it's a cargo van, so there is no window. So we just want to go ahead and adhesive something to that, and then we'll make a nice trim panel for it later. And then these doors here, if you remove these covers, these door panels, there's a big pocket in behind there. Now the one at the back here you can see, right? It's just empty void of space. Now that there, I don't want to just start trying to shove foam into there. Like, I can't cut one big piece and fit it in. So for that one there, I probably will use some rock wool or something like that and just get some pieces and shove them in there, and then it'll fill that space and create an air pocket there for be an insulating air layer, right? Which is what we're looking to do. So first step first, we're going to go ahead and we're going to trim out this last piece here. I'll do that for you, and then I'll see where I need adhesive. I got some in the house warming up because it's pretty cold outside today. I want to make sure that stuff's warm for coming out of the tube, and then we'll go ahead and adhesive what we need to adhesive, and from there we'll move on from there. I'll show you what we're doing next. Okay, now one thing to note is that these ribs on the walls are not necessarily square and straight. So I went through, I took a measurement at the top and at the bottom for all these things, and then I just took my top measurement, transferred across there on my board, my bottom measurement across here. Then I don't need a perfect straight edge for this, so this old 2x4 I had laying around was good enough to make a straight edge. So then I just lined that up with my marks, use a pen or a knife to just score that along this line. Now I've got a nice scored mark where I know I need to make my cut. Get my straight edge out of the way. Start cutting. Now this cut's fairly smooth for the most part, but you will get a little bit of binding with these foam balls in here. So just try to plow through that. I'm not worried about it being perfect, like I said. Not a whole lot of room to work in here. Optimally, it would just be outside working on a workbench, but it's freezing cold here, so working inside is kind of what I'm stuck with for now. I'll just get this plastic foil pack on the back. Now there's the piece I need to fit my area. I'll turn you around here and see how I mangle it all in there. This one is fun. This is why I was going to show you the most ignorant one, I said. The other ones just slap right in pretty easy. But here, we got that rib that comes out, and then we also got the wheel well here that I have to cut around as well. So, my knife. And as I mentioned for the roof, the 4-foot width of those spans, they fit pretty much perfect across the roof. Well, the 4-foot also fits almost perfectly from ceiling to floor, so I just have to cut a length out of my 8-foot length on these foam boards. So that worked out pretty good. I only had to do one cut. You don't have to trim the other way too. Probably figure out my wheel well first, if I remember how I did this. This is where a measuring tape will come in handy. And again, we're not trying to be perfect here because it can fill all the gaps with the spray foam. So I know that I'm 32 inches wide here, so measure in from the bottom to my wheel well. about 16 inches. Get our 16-inch. Do this on the floor. 16-inch. That's where we're going to start our cut from the bottom coming up. The height of this. Now I measured the other one, so I already know, but I just used a straight edge across the top here to get a rough measurement of my height. And that was 9.5 inches. So 9.5. All right. There's our 16-inch to start on the other side of the wheel well, and it's going to have to come up around here to meet at a 9.5-inch height. Now that I know my two marks and I know they need to meet, I know the rough shape, so I am going to err on the side of caution and keep it a little tighter here and not try to do a wider arc, because it's always easier to cut more out if it doesn't quite fit. We can just trim it up, and than it is to add more back if we overcut. So there, I got a rough idea where I want to be. Stuff makes a mess too. All those foam balls start coming apart and knots, so we're definitely going to be doing some vacuum cleanup in here after. There. Now you can see it's starting to take shape. So that's where it's going to be popping in, but we're going to have to trim a bit off the edge there to get up in that pocket I showed you earlier. And the other thing is there's another rib running down the back here that I have to trim around. So this is going to end up being two pieces in the end. So there's the start of our rib. There's the other side of it. Just eyeballing where that rib was. Now this is where I said it's going to need to fit back behind here. So basically have to make a cut into this that it can slide around this rib here. But that's likely going to just break. But even if it does, like I said, we'll just mangle it in there and then spray foam to fill it and get everything nice and sealed up. I better take this corner off. piece there, like I said, probably just gonna break. But there we go. Now we're pretty well got what we need lined up. We can just adhesive that down from the back side there. And the piece that we cut from the bottom, now I can trim a little bit off here so that this fits around the bottom piece of that rib. Quite tight enough. Oh, not quite. Not quite. But like I said, it's easier to take more off than it is to add it back on. So. Careful I don't cut my fingers off here. Tight there. There. Now we got that filled. And then, if there's any bigger pockets here where you maybe just don't want to spray foam completely, you got lots of chunks and cut-offs. You can stuff them in there and then spray foam around that if you want, right? So, I think that's about it for me. It's time to move on to doing adhesive on whatever we need here to keep stuff stuck down. Alright, so I'm going to go get my adhesive. Alright, welcome to the mess and madness here. I'll show you what we're up against. So, started gluing down the ceiling insulation boards here. I tried to use silicone because I was thinking if I ever want to remove them, you know, to cut some holes in the roof for fans and air conditioner or whatever in the future, then that would be easy to peel off of there and it should stick in the meantime. But I think the problem I'm running into right now is that the metal on the roof is so cold because it's like minus 10 degrees outside, so the stuff just doesn't want to stick. It doesn't want to adhere. Plus there's potential humidity sitting on there as well. So I had to go get some proper, you know, heavy duty construction adhesive and just, oh well, it is what it is. If I ever need to do anything with the roof, like I'll just cut through this stuff and we'll figure it out. So here we got, you know, found 3 makeshift prop rods that I could use because there's a bit of a bow in the roof, right? Like it has it's not straight across, it's not square. So I just used some old scrap pieces of plywood and other wood here, and then, you know, few broom rods and a jack handle that I had laying around that just happened to be about the right size. Wedged them into the floor here, you know, just to put some tension up and hold that stuff up while this glue cures. So that should take care of that. Now the rest of these, like these panelings on the wall, they're just sticking in. I already talked about that a bit. They're pretty much just friction fit sitting in there. I'm not even going to bother gluing them. I think that's totally fine. However, these ones here at the back, you can see there's, right, because it's the bow in the wall back there, the way the angle of the wall changes so much, I do want to stick something back there to glue them in. So what I'm gonna have to do is get another, like probably just cut a piece of lumber that'll fit about across there and wedge it across the same way as I'm wedging between the floor up to the ceiling here. I'll just have to wedge wall to wall with the right size and a few scrap pieces of wood there just to hold things out and together, and I think that should do it. So then next thing, I got to get on with cutting some pieces for where these windows would normally be, plus those windows in the back. I'm gonna cut some insulation board just to we're gonna cover that up, and these are all gonna be, once we glue, I'm not gonna glue right to the window, but I will seal around the edge there once I have the foam piece cut out for it. So that'll insulate that area, and then once that's done, eventually we'll make some trim up to go over that so it doesn't just look like this ugly insulation sitting out. It'll actually look nice, you know. I don't know what we'll do, whether it's just a piece of paneling or some tongue and groove or something like that, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So that'll be the next step we're moving on to. So far so good. A little bit of mess and fun. It's a disaster in here, but we'll clean this up once we get the insulation part done. So I'll cut these window pieces out next, and then I'll show you those. All right, hard cut, no segue. That's how we do things here. I'm back. It's months later for me. For you, through movie magic editing, will be no time past at all. But it was winter when you last checked in with me, which was 2 seconds ago. It's a new season now. It's warm out, summer. It's not actually that warm today, but I ran into some challenges trying to do this insulation job on the van. Now it was so cold. I think I told you guys it was like minus 40 at the time. And even though I had heat inside because we had the diesel heater going and that was working, that was actually producing a lot of heat. It was great. It was easy to work. But the outside skin of the van, the metal, was so cold that it was forming frost along the inside of the walls, and I couldn't get any adhesive to stick to the walls. So what I'm trying to do here, all these foam panels, I want to glue them down to the wall and behind to try to seal that up so that we don't end up with any moisture behind there. That's usually moisture is your big enemy in these camper vans. So I'm going to move on with that now. It should be warm enough we can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and glue behind all these. We've got the ceiling panels. I want to get glue in behind all of those to seal them up. And then also we've got spray foam that's going to go along and seal all in beside these crevices, these edges, and really seal that up to make sure we don't have moisture behind there. And then also I want spray foam up in all these channels along here because we don't want any heat transfer, which would actually be cold transfer. We don't want any heat transferring out to the outside of the van. Losing as much as we can. We don't want any spots where you can hit that humid air inside can hit and condense all that moisture out of the air. We want to keep as much moisture out of here as possible. So just get everything sealed up as best I can, and that's what we're going to move on with now. So I'll go ahead and set you up for that. Let's get to work here.
Let's go!
All right, well, I was using a shower rod there, just a portable one, to extendable and prop out across the sides there, because those back two panels on the van are like very curved. So I wanted to press that foam into there and really glue it up to the wall. But it is going to have a cover over the wall. The glue is overkill. My rod decided to fail. So I'm going to go ahead and show you all the headaches that I'm up against, because it's likely you might end up against them too if you're ever going to mess with this. So I'm not going to edit that stuff out just to make myself look like a pro. But that, like I said, that's overkill. So I'm just going to go ahead and move on because it's a headache I don't need, and I just want to get this done. So we're moving on to just do the spray foam and all the cavities that we need them in here. So I got the big gap filler, baby. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and fill some gap, and then yeah, that should be easy enough to do. Now this can says I got to shake it for 60 seconds, give it a real good shake, and you got to use it upside down. So let's do that. That should be fun. And there you have it. It's a horrible mess to deal with now, but that's okay. We'll just wait for this to all dry, and then we'll come back in here, trim this all off. I'm probably gonna add a little bit more to this thing here. There's a little too big of a void for this stuff to stack up. It just kind of fell. It just kept falling down. I didn't want to stick. So that's okay. I'll just come back and fill a little more there where we missed. But other than that, the rest of this can just be trimmed off with a X-Acto knife. And that'll be that. All right, thanks for joining me today. I'm calling it on that one today. Why don't you come back next time, and we're going to go ahead and frame up the bed and do a few other things. So I hope to see you then. Thanks for tagging along, and see you next time.